beans, and I'm vegetarian now. I've been vegetarian for 22 days.
Good for you. Drink a lot of water, man. Don't flush
the 29th. No, I've been vegetarian for 21 days now.
Get you some water, man. Water and coffee.
Yeah, I drink it constantly.
Good.
Beans and water and broccoli, and I eat nuts.
I mean, I just stick to hard seltzers.
Hard AF. And again, your guy, your friend.
Oh, my gosh.
With more money. Amazing gentleman.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, we read that comment a minute ago. All right, let's get into, I don't think it'll be heated, but so.
And even if it is, Mikey, you know it's all love, brother.
Yeah, it's all good. Well, I'm an insecure dude. Sometimes it's like with text messaging. When they write something, you don't really understand the meaning or the emotions behind it, so you think of it in one way. That's how I get. It's weird.
That's why I always tell you how much I love you, man. That's why they're just sports takes, man. It doesn't mean I feel any kind of way about you or anybody else.
We were talking about Colin Cowherd being a cuck just recently with Animal. That was his quote. He said he's probably a cuck.
He's probably right.
Davante Adams, there's been a lot of talk about him for many reasons, whether it be trolling comments by the press or stuff he said on the show Receiver. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch it, but I just feel like he's being diva-esque, and I don't mind it. But I do think there is a lot of I forgot the word, but I think there's a lot of true to the statement that he will be traded. And I think it'll be before next year, and I'll explain why in a minute. But do you think he'll be traded? Because I think you told me that you don't think at all he'll ever be traded or something like that. So give me your take on that.
Well, I know better than to say at all ever, but the idea that he's going to get traded this year before the trade deadline, no, I don't think that that's going to happen. I do think that there's a world where he will have to rework his contract after this year, take a little bit more of the Larry Fitzgerald route. If you think about that, the way that Fitz was, starting to rework his contract, the deeper that he got into his career, to the deepest points of his career, even shifted into being, a slot receiver because he wasn't able to get separation on the outside like he used to. I think Davante Adams definitely goes that same type of route, and it would take a colossal failure for the Raiders to have it be worth their while to trade Davante Adams. You're not going to have this investment in this coaching staff, and then all of a sudden you're just going to turn on trade away your arguably best player on offense. What kind of messaging does that send to your locker room? What kind of messaging does that send to your...
We'll answer some questions in a few minutes toward the end of the show, probably in about another half an hour. But I just want to let everybody know I see your questions. Save them, toward the end of the show. I'm sorry, Murf. I just wanted to respect them.
No, you're all good, bro. Yeah. So anyway, I think that's what it would take a 2-6 type start, 1-7 type start for it to make sense for the Raiders to trade Davante Adams. And there's no world, especially since the more favorable part of our schedule is early in the season, there's no world where we're that bad. And
he's getting $40.5 million next season.
Yeah. And so that's what I'm saying. Like he will get reworked after this year, but it's not going to equal a trade this year unless, again, the season is a colossal failure. But there's no world where this is that level of failure where the Raiders need to trade him. Because I'm talking about if you're 4-4, you got to remember, guys, now we have 17 freaking games in the season. If they're 4-4 at the halfway point, we're still very much in contention for a playoff spot. And you're not going to trade your best player on offense when you're in contention for a playoff spot. So
when they make contracts, Murf, I believe nowadays, how they get their guaranteed money. They get a guarantee for 5 years or whatever the situation is. Then they get their guaranteed money, and it's all been paid off by year 2 or 3. And then they still have 2 years on the contract, like Davante Adams, where now his salary goes from 27 to 41 million or 40.5 million.
But stop! You got to throw that out the window, man.
I think they know that those are the years that they possibly want to reevaluate whether they trade him or move on from him. I think both parties know when they make those contracts that once the guaranteed money is gone, that they typically want another contract. And then depending on the situation, they know that they might be traded at those exact moments. So looking at next year, you have to say that
you're talking about next year. Stop.
If we start out 1-7 and they know if they made the contract knowing he was possibly going to be traded in 2025, you might as well trade him in week 9. So it is a scenario where it could happen because it might have been in the contract for next year automatically.
Yeah, it could happen. But shit, we could wake up tomorrow with 900 million subscribers to our channel too.
I just think it's more likely than not. If we have a bad start to the season, I personally think it's more likely.
If we see, that's the criteria that people that are buying into this theory that we're going to trade this man. That's the thing, and that's the thing that I will combat against and speak back against and disagree with vehemently. Is that the Raiders are going to be that level of bad that we would make sense for them? Because I'm with you. If we're that bad, then yeah, trade his ass and fire a whole bunch of people. Like I totally agree. But the idea that that's going to happen, and I also, as a fan of this team, will refuse and oppose that level of thinking, considering the optimism that we have gone into this offseason coming out of the end of last year. I mean, I was at this Antonio Pierce's first game against the New York Giants, and I was at his last game against the Denver Broncos. And that energy in Allegiant Stadium is different.
I'm sorry, Cool Kev. I'm not trying to speak it into existence. I just think about the future, and I'm afraid of everything. I go through the worst scenarios instead of the good scenarios. That's my apologies.
All right. Easy with that shit. And it's not there.
I try.
The energy behind Antonio Pierce, the energy in Allegiant Stadium, the energy with the team is completely different. This was my whole point about the national media folks that aren't invested and educated and aware of what's gone on. I've seen it firsthand, been there in it, and I'm just a fan. But the tailgates, the games, everything is different now than it was. That is not going to stop this year. That momentum that we ended with last year is going to carry in to this year. When you look at the Raiders of 2023, there are 2 different football teams. There is the 8 games with Josh McDaniels and the 9 games with Antonio Pierce, and they are so completely different. When you look at the productivity on offense that we had, so completely different. When you looked at the defensive buy-in, so completely different. When you looked at the individual performances on said defense, completely different. These are 2 separate football teams. That 9-game team from 2023 isn't going to stop going into 2024. So it's going to lead to a certain level of success. Am I sitting here telling you they're going to win the AFC West? No, but are they going to be so bad that they're going to be in a position where they're going to want to trade away the best player on offense? That's asinine. Hell no, it ain't going to be like that. You think we're going to lose the freaking Chargers, the Broncos, or any of the first 8 teams that we play? No. You think we're going to lose the goddamn Bo Nix? No. It's not going to happen.
Aaron Rodgers talking, all that stuff and the trolling and, and Davante.
Tony Shepard says that Murf was at the Crab Fest for AP's second speech. 100% I was. His first speech was his freaking introductory press conference, and the second speech was the one I was there at when he spoke to the Bolitnikovs. And the entire room, this is a room full of Hall of Famers. You got guys, you got Super Bowl MVPs like Jim Plunkett and Fred Bolitnikoff and the great Lincoln Kennedy and all these amazing players and families and members of the most, talk about the inner circle of the Raiders, standing up and standing ovations for what Antonio Pierce had to say. I'm telling y'all, it's different. This shit is different. It's not that same carnival. This isn't the same failure the Raiders have been in the past, man. And you know what? And I will eat these words, bookmark this shit, screenshot it, freaking take pictures, do whatever the hell y'all want to do, and shove it back in my face freaking 2 months from now. Because I promise you that or 3 months from now, this damn football team is not going to be that bad to trade away Davante Adams. That man is going to finish this season in silver and black. hopefully with a positive record.
Well, yeah,
hopefully with a let me finish. Hopefully
season.
with a playoff appearance. Hopefully with at least a playoff win, and then they're going to freaking restructure his contract next season. That's the way that this thing is going to play out. Book that shit.
I love it, man. Murf taking it. Somebody take a clip of that and save it. Hopefully I'll remember it. Again, I agree with you everything for this season. And in a world where we start out 2-6 or whatever the case may be before the trade deadline, I mean, in my opinion, there is a percentage more so than not that he wants, another contract with another team. And again, that's if. We'll leave it at that. But I still am standing pat that he's going to want some more guaranteed money next year. And they're definitely going to try to figure out a restructure. And if the Raiders feel like, he doesn't have it, or if he feels like we don't have a quarterback at that moment, I could see him and the Jets winning. I could see them trying to make that work. And again, that's just my philosophy. So I give a percentage of him being traded this year, probably 20%. Things always go wrong sometimes in my Raider view. You have a more positive view, and I love you for that. That's why I want to be your best friend. But for next year, I'm going to put that at like 70%, man. Depending on the quarterback situation and everything that happens. But I do believe he wants to be here, but other factors are going to play into his decision for next year, meaning our quarterback play, how we're performing on the field, and if we actually look like we got a shot at the playoffs for the next upcoming seasons. That's just my final thought on that.